Championship teams are built in the trenches, and Florida State's offensive line is going to lead the way to our playoff run in 2023, right, Drake?
Yes, sir, David. As always, let's ride.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to another edition of Locked On Seminoles. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Drake here, and today in the stream yard, I'm joined by Dave. As always, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, of the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment matter more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn, LOCKEDON today to get started. Now, Dave, trench talk. But not both sides of the trenches. We're going to start off with the offensive line. Expectations heading into last year were that this offensive line is continuously improving each and every single season. It's come a long way since the first season under Mike Norvell. And quite honestly, it's also because of Alex Atkins, what he's been able to do overall. What did you see from his offensive line from this past season? How did you felt that they actually performed overall?
Well, the offensive line going into last year, I think we all thought would continue to improve. Like, it's been on a gradual improvement since the bottom it reached a few years ago. Alex Atkins took over an absolute mess along the offensive line, an offensive line that frankly should not have been a Power 5 offensive line. It wasn't playing like one. It wasn't
It wasn't a group of 5-1 either, to be honest with you.
Right. It was a borderline not FBS offensive line. That's exactly right. And there was not a ton for Alex Atkins to work with, frankly. Not to be mean here, but that's the reality. There wasn't a lot for him to work with in that cupboard. And so he made the best of what he could do when he first came in. He obviously, we've recruited since then. We were going into year 3 last year. And so I think the expectations were that the offensive line would be good, maybe, or above average to good. And I think that's exactly what you got out of this line last year. So you had 5 guys take 450 or more snaps along the offensive line. You didn't have anybody grade over 67 in run blocking. You did have Dillan Gibbons with his pass blocking 71, Mo Smith pass blocking 72. So the run blocking was and the pass blocking was Yeah, exactly.
That was good. It was pretty decent.
It's exactly right. And, the run blocking thing, it's funny because do we need good run blocking? I don't know. We keep having these running backs doing all this crazy stuff. It could be more so Trey Benson breaking off yards after contact and Jayshon Corbin doing the same thing. So because what we
not Jayshon Corbin. That was Jayshon Corbin from 2 years ago, my guy.
Yeah, right. But like in spite of bad run blocking, and yet still performed in spite of that. Yards after contact has been big. It seems like we've required a running back that's capable of doing that to make up for bad run blocking. And so I don't know what this running game is going to look like under Mike Norvell with good run blocking, but even with just average, that's what you got last year. So a little, above average pass blocking. I think you noticed that with Jordan Travis able to stand in the pocket a little more, but he was very good about moving around anyways and using his legs to create space. It creates time in the pocket more so than just running the ball. So he did his offensive line some favors. I think that helped them as well. So I think overall you would have to say offensive line play probably met expectations last year.
No, I mean, I think that's the correct answer. And I think you don't look any further than Dillan Gibbons himself, the Cartier wearing the people's lineman, I think, at this point, because he was someone that you saw that Devontae Love Taylor set the tone for basically, a transfer coming in here, kind of being someone of the leaders of the room. Unfortunately, he did have that injury, was limited in 2021, but then you saw Dillan Gibbons was able to stay fully healthy for the most part, even though I do think it's very well known that he played through numerous injuries each and every single game. And that there were some games that you even asked yourself that he was asked, like, hey, we don't know if he's going to be playing this week because of his injury, and he still found a way to be out there. And then you have Robert Scott, who did miss some time. You saw his importance too as well, actually at one of the tackle spots, because that Wake Forest game, I think, would be completely different if he actually was fully healthy, because that offense could not go on without him. And then Mo Smith, a player that kind of emerged actually as someone that was very reliable, because we lost Caden Lyles. And Caden Lyles lost someone that a lot of people picked, including myself, to start over Mo Smith, while Mo Smith was able to probably get away, not get away, but stay fully healthy for an entire offseason, because he hasn't been able to do that since he got here, because he had to start actually as a freshman. And also, this is the first time in a long time that we've seen an offensive line that we didn't have to start like a true freshman or even like a true sophomore, which is actually super nice. And you saw Jazston Turnerine, who I think probably was one of the biggest unsung hero for the entire offensive line, actually come in there and be not only the sixth lineman that we needed, but play the tackle spot after we lost Bless Harris for the season.
Yeah, that's right. There were injury issues along an offensive line that to begin with had, development to do. And, so mixing and matching young guys with newcomers through the transfer portal, that's always going to be tough and that's going to hamper growth, but it really didn't. So the fact that this offensive line didn't get worse and I don't think stayed the same either from the year prior, is a great sign for the continued trajectory of the offensive line play.
No, I completely agree with that. And also, Dave, it's also a great, great sign for times heading into Sunday.
What would that be, Drake?
There's our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Folks, we've been talking about it all week. We love our new sponsor over here at FanDuel. We're really excited about it because basically they're the number one sportsbook in America. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. Download FanDuel now so you can get the Super Bowl 57 with no sweat first bet. You get up to $3,000, uno, dos, tres, $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. Folks, Super Bowl Sunday, you got first TD props, you got MVP props. Patrick Mahomes did win the MVP last night for the entire league. Or if you're Dave, just fade the Eagles because it's Philly and it's fun to make fun of Philly. But join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/LockedOn, LOCKEDON, to claim your no sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn, LOCKEDON. Make every moment matter more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, folks, we are back. We are rocking and rolling here on Locked On Seminoles. I want to thank each and every single one of you for making us your first listen each and every single day. Now, David, the offseason was upon us. The offensive line might look extremely different heading into next season. Keiondre Jones, transfer from Auburn. Jeremiah Byers, one of the top offensive linemen, transferred from UTEP. Bless Harris can actually probably come back being fully healthy too as well. And also Dimitri Emmanuel, another one that starts a lot, kind of the untalked about player of the offensive line, maybe coming back if he gets his full waiver. What do you think actually going to be heading into the next season? How you feel about this offensive line?
Well, generally speaking, it's going to be hard to say. I'm going to expect bad things when Atkins is the coach, because I think he's shown that. And this seems to be a consistency among most of Mike Norvell's staff, that they're able to squeeze the most out of what's in front of them, kind of regardless of whether there's personnel limitations or, whatever it may be. And so, yes, I think there's going to be a risk of this offensive line throughout parts of this next year looking unrecognizable from last year in terms of the personnel you see out there. And, you would look, it's gotten a little better every year. We're not a great offensive line yet, and we're still not a very good offensive line yet. So if you stay, between the above average to good range, then, I think that's good. That's probably good enough for Florida State to not be limited by the offensive line, but I think there is a chance of it being better than good realistically. Like, it's funny to me because every time we talk about the incoming offensive line transfers, you never say Jeremiah Byers first. But Jeremiah Byers was the best offensive lineman, arguably, in the transfer portal class. And I will be stunned if he doesn't come in and start day one. But it's important that a guy like him is coming in for this offensive line, because you're talking about having two guys who in pass protection graded at 71 and 72. Everyone else on the team in pass pro is 66 or below. That's That's not very good. And in a year where Jordan Travis came back to make himself some money in the NFL draft and possibly win Florida State, a conference championship and go to the playoffs, you're going to need to keep Jordan Travis upright. So you need kids like Jeremiah Byers who are already better than good offensive linemen that Alex Atkins can, hopefully mold into great ones because, even our best offensive lineman, Dillan Gibbons, he was, I think you could say good, but that's it. That's been our best offensive lineman for the last several years. Good. Nothing better. So I think we can do better.
No, I completely agree. And it's not taking a shot at Dylan either, but like
No, it's
overall,
not.
like, if you want to take a next step, you kind of want that one. You need that one offensive lineman, kind of like that's the elite. Like, oh, he's the number one probably option around the country. And Jeremiah Byers has showcased that at the Group of 5 level, actually over at UTEP. I mean, the thing is also with offensive lines too, it's like you need that kind of like that stalwart right there, and that 6'6", 290. That's Jeremiah Byers, and then also we also forget that Casey Roddick, the Colorado transfer, 6'4", 340. That's someone that we talk about. Like I know he's not the sexiest name on there, but we saw last year how important actually having serviceable depth is when you lost a lot of players along the offensive line, and to me, that's why Casey Roddick is so important. And you have Keiondre Jones, who is only a few years removed from being an all SEC freshman selection, actually over at Auburn. And that's someone that actually I'm very intrigued to see how Alex Atkins is able to develop and work with him because the talent is obviously there. And folks, if you have seen Auburn the past 2 seasons, that team was a train wreck under Brian Harsin. And that team did not want to play, or even the players didn't develop under Brian Harsin. So with Keiondre Jones, I'm actually very stoked to see how he actually turns up. And overall, with the offensive line, it's going to be interesting to see actually who starts for 2023, and that's I think going to be the fun part about spring practices.
Yeah, we don't know what those 5 offensive linemen are going to look like right now. Like putting together a depth chart is just speculation at this point because it's going to shake itself out and it's going to have to because there's multiple guys competing at spots, which means Drake quality depth, which again is something that we've had to build from absolutely nothing, from having no functional depth to now we're actually going to have quality depth. That is a heck of a turnaround. And just to the point of these, newcomers, I just wanted to read these grades for you. Jeremiah Byers last year at UTEP graded 80 in run blocking and 82.6 in pass blocking. That both
80?
of those
Wait,
grades.
does this number start with an 8?
Yeah, both of
Well,
those.
how green is that? How green is that green?
It's the greenest. We don't see green like that on our team for offensive line play, and like that would have been the best at both of those on our team by like I don't know, pick a big number. And that's how much better he would have been than any of our offensive linemen. Colorado, kind of the same story for Casey Roddick. Not great run blocking, 59.8, but pass blocking, 82.9. So you're bringing in 2 guys that are 82.9 and 82.6 in pass blocking. Yeah, that's a concerted effort to keep Jordan Travis upright, and that's exactly the right move for a money year.
No, I mean I completely agree with that, folks. We'll talk about basically who we think is going to be the starting, I guess, combination along the offensive line, and also how important it is for this quality depth will be for the freshmen, for the underclassmen like a Quayshawn Sapp, like a Julian Armel, like a Kenara Charlton. In the next segment, after a word from our sponsors. Okay, Dave, it's the end of the road. You know what to do. I'm going to hand the ball off to you. How do you want to land this thing?
Okay, here's what I want to do. I want to pick somebody that you would tell me who you think is going to start the year as a backup and by the end of the year will be a solidified offensive lineman that is somebody who will have going past 2023. In other words, like which one of the underclassmen do you think is going to make a big step forward onto the scene at offensive line for FSU? Because, and I'll tell you why I say that. Because it feels like we keep relying on all these transfers to come in, plug and play along the offensive line. And that can work. Sometimes it does. You get a Dillan Gibbons. Sometimes it doesn't. And, it's too bad that Caden Lyles got injured, but sometimes that happens. So this is why you grow in your farm system. Because, you get these kids that learn for a year or two, get in the weight training program, and then they're good. And then not only are they good, but you have them past that year and you don't have to replace them immediately and hope you hit again in the transfer portal. Hit rate is hard to sustain at the rate we're doing it. Drake, which underclassman is going to surprise?
I think it's Bryson Estes. I think Bryson Estes and Julian Armella, those are my two. I know Julian Armella is going to be, I think, the player that you would probably pick because he's the 5-star. He's the big toy. He's the person that you also saw him gameplay last year. He's like, oh, he definitely earned that rating. You can tell he's a very hard worker. But I think Bryson Estes has the first one up because he's got one more year on Julian Armella being from the class before him. But also, we saw Bryson Estes like predominantly on the 2 deep last year at several spots. He can snap. He can play guard. He's a really mean kid. That's the reason why we call him Honey Bun Bryson. Like that kid to me is basically he's going to be a solid player, has great technique, and that's someone that I see probably starting along the offensive line for next season. I mean, I'm talking for 2024, but I wouldn't be surprised if there is like an injury actually on the offensive line, God forbid, that he'd be one of the first men up to probably take that over because he was actually this was starting several times last season.
Yeah, let me not be a Debbie Downer here, but I'll go ahead and spoil it for you. There's going to be an injury on the offensive line. That it just happens. People are falling around your legs all the time. People get injured.
Yeah. The defense, yeah. Well, it's not going to happen, but it's given the nature of position, it does happen more often now than you want it to happen.
And like this is why it doesn't make sense to me or matter to like do an offensive line depth chart prediction or whatever because like what you see game 1 could change by game 2 because either injury or you just see things out there you don't like and you have to make corrections. So there's just so much rotation among the offensive line. But yeah, I mean, I will say this. I was surprised to look up Bryson Estes' PFF grades from last year because he actually played over 100 snaps and graded 67 in run blocking and 69.6 in pass blocking.
Nice.
And those are actually some pretty good grades for a guy that played in 7 games and over 100 snaps. So that's not that bad of a sample size. In the year prior, he only played 10 snaps, but same pass blocking grade 2 years in a row on limited snaps. So that actually is a really exciting prospect to think about at the guard spot for Florida State. But I don't know. There's always something to me about a tackle, man. Just having the bookends and knowing your quarterback's going to be protected. Julian Armella, yeah, he's a legacy. It makes so much sense. Like it has to work. It has to. The Julian Armella story has to come to fruition. It was destined to be. And Julian Armella is 6'6", 315. He's got the size you want. He only played 55 snaps last year. PFF wasn't the kindest to Julian Armella, gave him a 54.8 run blocking and 41.4 in pass blocking.
He's a freshman. He's a true freshman.
Right.
Like, I do not give up about PFF grades for true freshmen, especially along the offensive line. Like he didn't play that damn bad either. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah, I'm just reading. Hey, don't shoot the messenger. I'm telling you what PFF said. Those brilliant guys over there at PFF. But no, I mean, I think the question becomes, is it worrisome if you see a lot of a guy like Julian Armella or Bryson Estes? Does that mean something's gone wrong or a bad injury's happened? Or does that mean that those guys have just overtaken somebody on the depth chart at the beginning of the year? Which of the two do you think it is?
I think it's the latter. With Bryson Estes, this is year 3, so like that's something like you should be basically like, hey, either taking over someone's spot or you should be in a spot where quality wise, you just read off his grades, even though I just basically pooped on PFF for like 5 seconds. That like he actually is a quality replacement player, and that's someone that if he's in there, it's like, oh, someone's hurt, or maybe someone just we're fine with that, and that's good. And then with Julian Armella, that might be a little bit different because he is so young. He is still a sophomore, but I fully do expect that we see basically how Bryson Estes had 100 snaps. I definitely do see Julian Armella in garbage time having those 100 to 150 snaps to basically acclimate better to the game because that's what they want to do with a lot of these kids. They want to get these kids in-game reps in the season at some point, and that's why it's so important to win these games like the way we did last year with these, basically 45-3, with these 45-14, 45-7 kind of games, because you need to get the young guys some reps. You talked about it all the time, like how important in the blowouts it was to play the players out, keep them fresh, and have players and give the players younger, give them some reps to basically be prepared for next year and also be acclimated in game action.
Yeah, that's right. If we don't see a lot of those early underclassmen reps, in the season, then it's probably not going the way we want it to, because I think we're all predicting like this machine on offense that's gonna, have garbage time in the third quarter like the 2013 team. Um, Hopefully that's the case. And I can tell you this, if that is the case, it's because the offensive line is not limiting the offense. So the offensive line play is going to be critical. Like, don't mistake any of this conversation for thinking like, we don't think it's important that the offensive line be, above average or better. This offensive line for us to be a playoff team, really it has to be a great offensive line, right?
Yeah. No, not
Yeah.
even great. It has to be good.
Uh,
Last year, the offensive line was decent. Now you got to go from good. Now you
Yeah.
got to go to good and solid. You don't need to be a great offensive line because of the talent you actually have in the backfield. But also remember, for offensive line, you just need to give him enough time. Enough time means that you're a good offensive line. You give someone a lot of time, that means you're a great offensive line.
Yeah, and that may be the difference between like a conference championship team and a playoff team. I mean, I guess we'll find out. But, this line has at times throughout the last couple seasons shown that they can be good. So there's no reason that they can't be good throughout the season this coming year, especially you're talking an offensive line that's going to have upperclassmen at every single spot. You're most of the guys who've played, at one or more years already at Florida State. So you're going to have cohesion. You're going to have veteran leadership, not only along the starting five, but you're going to have veteran leadership on the two deep, supplemented by, exciting young guys like Julian Armella and Robert Estes, like you said. So he really
Bryson
does.
Estes.
Or Bryson Estes, yeah.
Come on, man. Robert Scott. I know you're confusing Robert Scott. We love Robert Scott too, though. So
We
you're
do.
right. You're right.
It feels like the right mix of players, like young and old, or talented young and veteran, older guys with a lot of experience. So I think you're gonna end up seeing the year starting out with an offensive lineman or an offensive line that's chock full of experience. There's no chance I think that you see the season start with a Bryson Estes or Julian Armella starting. I really don't see that. I think you go safe to start the year. Let it play out with your transfers out there that already have all this game experience, probably over the younger guys. So yeah, I think that's probably what you see to start the year. I think by the end of the year, it could look very different. And if you are saying, I think you're right. If you do see one of those, some of those younger guys starting by the end of the year, it's because we couldn't keep them off the field, which is best case scenario.
And folks, best case scenario is that we are here each and every single day to join with y'all because we love y'all so much. And Dave, as always, please send us home.
Yes, thank you for being here and listening to us every day. We always appreciate it. We love you, and thanks for your support. For our podcast, find us anywhere you find your podcast: Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, Google Play, and other places, the names of which I do not know. For the YouTube, give the video a like if you could, please. Takes 2 seconds. We greatly appreciate that as well. Subscribe to the channel, ding the little bell, turn your notifications on. You'll find out when our episodes drop. That's awesome for your lives and for ours. And as always, leave us a comment, please. Give us your starting five and your surprise candidate of the year along the offensive line. I would love to see that this time.
And we'd love to see you next time on Locked On Seminoles. For Dave, this is Drake, and we'll see y'all next time. Take care, everybody.
Don't hold.